Hi, and welcome to the Tita Talks podcast. I'm your host, Daaca, and this podcast is to inspire thoughtful action. So if you missed it, the acronym there, T.I.T.A stands for to inspire thoughtful action. And we certainly ripped that off TED Talk. So let's get no confusion there. This is really this is really a talk for the titas, titos, titex, and is a community platform for our stories to exist. I could not be more excited to be hosting this podcast every last Wednesday of the month with Radyo Kapwa. Big love to our friends over at Radyo Kapwa who work so tirelessly to put on the incredible programming that they do. I am so honored to share this space and this platform with you, the listener, and with the greater Radyo Kapwa community. So let's get right into it. I have a couple things that I want to share today. The story that I'm feeling called to share is how this podcast and community platform came to be, Tita Talks, and this notion of just starting. That messaging has just been so extremely clear these last couple of days. And to provide a little bit of context, I am one of the committee members for Kultivation Festival. We're a festival based in Winnipeg, Manitoba, where my hometown is. And it's a week-long festival celebrating Filipino excellence, really, if I could just put it in a few words, celebrates Filipino excellence through activations throughout the city for the week long festival, through food, art, music, dance, education. And it's Monday today, and we just finished, or at least I'm recording on Monday. I know it's Wednesday today. We're actually recording on Wednesday today. The festival ended just a couple days ago, and I am still feeling so incredibly full from all of the programming that has happened over the last week. We did 34 activations across the city of Winnipeg, and some slightly outside of Winnipeg, across 7 days. And some of the feedback that I have received so far from people who are participating, who had participated in the festival, is, I didn't know that I needed this. And I think it's really beautiful to see your community so inspired and active and vibrant in their organizing. We did, again, 34 activations across 7 days, which is incredible. And, I could truly just spend the entire podcast time talking about this festival, but the notion of just start, I think every organizer within cultivation, whether it be a food activation or an educational activation or a dance battle or an art installation, someone somewhere had this idea like, okay, I just need to start. Like, whatever this thing I'm feeling called to do, like, I just need to start. So I think that message has really been resonating with me, especially lately. And again, the message that I want to share today, the story that I want to share today is this notion, this inspired action of just starting. I think that there are a lot of different factors that have to kind of perfectly align for our ideas to come to life in the way that they're meant to be. And to expand on that, like, I'm just going to talk about Tita Talks as a podcast and as a community platform. I have had the idea for Tita Talks as a podcast, probably for the last year and a half. And it's not until a couple of weeks ago that I really just started to put action behind it. And I am fully okay with how much time it took for me to feel good about putting out community offerings, as well as, again, this podcast itself, because in retrospect and looking back at the last year and a half, I knew that there were certain life experiences that had to happen, certain people who needed to be involved in this project in order for it all to make sense, right? So while I am sharing this message of just start, if you have some kind of calling or an idea that's kind of burning within you, this idea of just starting, okay, that's fine. Like on the one side, I do really encourage us to take these things and run with them and feel confident to take up space with our ideas and our creations. But on the other hand, this notion of like, okay, there's still this divine timing that I think has to happen, and that everything truly happens in its right time, and that you actually don't have to rush. So I don't want it to get confused with like just start as this like, kind of capitalist energy of like we need to do stuff and produce stuff right now. That's not the message at all. The spirit of the message, I think, is if you feel called to do something, there's a reason. There's something that you are meant to create either for yourself, which is kind of first and foremost for yourself, but also that the world, your community, people around you, they actually need your creations. So I really love this idea of us confidently taking space up with our ideas. um, and yeah, that's the story that I want to share today is how Tita Talks came to be. Kind of the background spirit and vibe of Tita Talks as a community platform, and that we actually have everything that we need to start. So to provide a little bit of information, some context, because we're new, right? Like this is episode 1. We're still getting to know each other. Let's provide a little bit of context on Tita Talks as a platform. So again, I came up with this idea of Tita standing for To Inspire Thoughtful Action, as a community platform and a podcast. And what I really envisioned for it eventually is that it is just this soft landing place for our stories to exist without extraction, without exploitation, a place where we can validate each other through our storytelling. And I think in a lot of my work, that is kind of the core value, perhaps core idea, that our stories are so valuable that we need to validate our own stories by saying them out loud, first of all, and by sharing them with other people. I think in a lot of the work that I do in community organizing, I can kind of see the light bulbs go off in the room when we hear other people's stories, because I think we're also validated by our own lived experience is validated when we hear other people's stories as well. So it's always been the notion of, okay, we have all these stories and what are we going to do with them? So when Tita Talks came to be, this idea of Tita Talks, it really was about giving space, giving a platform for those stories, and for those exact reasons, right? There are a ton of places outside of Tita Talks, outside of Radyo Kapwa, and these really kind of safe community containers where our stories live and breathe and have the space to just exist. There's a lot of places outside of that where we intentionally or unintentionally make ourselves small, right? Um, I think there are also lots of stories of these, again, containers that come from a singular point of view and singular lens where, that's not our story and that's not our lived experience. And it's hard to see ourselves in those stories, right? Like think about every movie or TV show you've ever seen. Very rarely, almost never, we are the main characters of it. And, through that constant messaging of not seeing yourself represented in mainstream media, TV shows, movies, it's very easy for the world to invalidate our stories. So, Tita Talks as a community platform is really here to remind you that your stories are valid. And I just want to be the place or I really want this podcast, this community to be the place where our stories can just live and breathe and coexist with each other. And I really foresee a lot of beautiful things happening right here on the podcast at Radyo Kapwa, but also in greater community settings where we can take up a little bit more space with those stories. So I've always felt like, we're all here and we need just like a medium, a place to land, right? For those stories to take up space. So I wanted to share the story of how Gather came to be. So Gather is one of the areas of Tita Talks that is, so we have the podcast and then community gatherings. So Gather is a series of community events hosted by Tita Talks where we get together and again share stories and kind of validate each other through those stories. So I've had the idea to do different city meetups for Tita Talks, but I never could put my finger on what the format was going to be. And I've been sitting on this for a long time and trying to rack my brain on, okay, I have this understanding that I want to do something, but I don't know what it looks like yet. Really request because I'm like, I don't know what it is I need the answers to, but if you could just tell me the answers, I just need a little guidance here or there. So that evening at that point, I guess I was just feeling a little bit directionally lost. I didn't really know what direction I was going to take this in or what it was going to look like. And again, the ask to my ancestors was not directed at any certain point in my part of my life, but I was feeling a little bit lost, and I was like, can you just tell me the answers? I don't want to think anymore so hard about this. And I went to bed, woke up the next morning, not in any normal kind of way, but the apartment that we were staying at, the fire alarm went off at 3:45 in the morning. So just jolted out of bed and was just wide awake at that point. So I'm lying in bed. We finally got the fire alarms to quiet down, and I'm just lying there. Now I'm wide awake. And all of a sudden, in kind of like a download form, the answers apparently that I was looking for just kind of came. They came to me, and I could envision the entire event from start to finish, what the format was going to be, what we were going to do, what the room was going to look like, how the storytelling was going to happen in its kind of rapid fire nature, the community journaling that we would do together. It all just kind of came to me, and I ran out of bed and had to write all the ideas down. And that is truly how I can describe Tita Talks Gather coming together. So again, Gather is a series of community events, and this one that I ran for Kultivation Festival was a community journaling and rapid fire storytelling event. So the format was community journaling, and then we all take up space with our stories. We share stories together. And again, for a long time, I didn't have the vision of what this was going to look like, and it just came all of a sudden. So, you know, on the message of just start, I think there are still things that need to happen in order for those ideas to come to light the way that they were meant to, right? So for example, I think that there were some, again, life experiences or guidance, divine guidance perhaps, that I needed in order for this idea to make sense at this time. And I do think that for me, launching Tita Talks in my hometown felt really right. I have felt extremely held by the community here in Winnipeg. If you're not familiar with any of the community organizing that's happening in Winnipeg, we've got a very vibrant Filipino community, a lot of very active organizers who put on events for us to learn and unlearn together in community. And I have truly learned so much. And I think in this journey of, learning and unlearning and my own decolonization work, both in community and with my own self, I have really found that again, the Winnipeg community has really held me through that work. I do think that Tita Talks as a platform, it couldn't have existed a couple of years ago. I don't think that it would have been possible because the last couple of years for me have been extremely transitional. I think we'll get into that a lot more as the podcast progress, but I think the decolonizing work and this journey back to myself, understanding my own identity, um, defining my identity on my own terms, again, has really taken off in the last couple of years. And I think that a lot of things had to happen in order for me to be here in front of you on this podcast today. And there just really was no rush. So when I think back about all of the things that had to transpire, so it was, this work, this self-identity work, changing my relationship to work, I think is actually a big one too, because I don't necessarily think that I would ever believe that I would have the time or capacity to do this. And actually, one of the thoughts that floated around or floated into my head, perhaps right before this podcast started, was the thought that I am perfectly resourced. I don't necessarily know that that's a thought that had really occurred to me or popped into my head prior to that, but I was thinking about Tita Talks at that time, like a couple weeks before we started recording or putting Gather together. And this thought of being perfectly resourced, I really like that. And I think, the week that we just had with cultivation, I think it's so true. I think that in all of the work, we are just kind of perfectly resourced. Like it's all here whenever we're ready for it. So the message that I really want to leave with y'all is that there's if there's something inside of you that is waiting to be created, waiting to be birthed, or this burning desire or idea that you have kind of like swirling around in your head or in your heart, I think there's a reason. I think that you're called to do certain work because somebody out there needs it. And, even in the example of how Tita Talks Gather came to be, I think there are also moments where, for me, it really felt like somebody plopped this specific idea into my head because they knew I was ready for it. I don't know if that sounds just so ridiculous. I don't think it is. I don't think it is because I think we are divinely guided by our ancestors. And I think, again, in this journey back to ourselves, decolonizing what we know about work and idea generation and creation is that sometimes we are divinely guided to do something because there's someone out there who needs it. The other thing I wanted to say about Tita Talks, I kind of meant to mention this at the beginning, is Tita as a noun, perhaps. I think when we think about Titas talking, there is somewhat of a negative connotation to that, where you got the titas just this, or, you go to your tita's house and she has something just really awful to say to you. And I think that we're the generation of taking that back, like taking that term back, as in like, no, we're the titas breaking the generational curses. We are the titas who are very aware that we're the future ancestors. Like we're really stepping into that role. Like we are the titas, right? Like some of these things are going to stop with us. And I think that's really beautiful. And again, to do that work in community, I think is really a beautiful thing. So Tita Talks as a platform, again, it's really here for our storytelling and to inspire one another. In this story of, having mustered up the courage to finally start something, I also completely want to acknowledge how community alignment and care really facilitated this today, because I have always felt unready to start the podcast. And I think there are excuses that I have made pretty much the whole time I've had this idea. Is like, okay, I'm traveling too much and I won't have a consistent space to record, or I don't really know if I have time to put out something consistently, or I'm watching everybody else do their podcast and they're doing it weekly. Like there's no way I could do that as well. And when France invited me to host this podcast every last Wednesday of the month, there was a real moment of community alignment and care that happened in that time. I think there's a mutual care that's happening because, I'm helping offload some of the recording labor from them, and they are certainly helping me with the editing and giving a platform or a place for this podcast to exist. And I do think that we were both guided to this place of helping each other out. So, you know, the story today is like, just start, but also acknowledge that there are a lot of other things that kind of happen around it, around your ideas, around your creations that help to facilitate it. Like you're not alone in these big ideas that you have. And I think that there is something somewhat isolating about having big visions or big dreams, because if I can even just give an example of how I feel about my own life, sometimes I feel almost some fear around my biggest, brightest, you could even say most healed self, because I'm aware that things around me will have to change. And somehow that feels very isolating. Like, oh, I don't know that certain people can come along with me, or I don't know if I can keep living where I'm living. And I think that fear of changing the way that I have to live scares me a little bit, which is funny because I'm someone who mostly embraces change in my life. Um, but I do think that there is something very terrifying about having a big idea, because it's very vulnerable. It's very vulnerable to put yourself out there. So for anyone who is creating or organizing or planning events or making art, like I see you and I'm so proud of you. It's not easy. It's not easy. But the thing I want to say is that the people need your ideas. The people need your ideas. And I always say, even if just one person needs the thing that I'm creating, whether it be a workshop, whether it be an event, whether it be a piece of content on Instagram, if it just reaches one person, I'm good with that. So I hope that today, the message of inspired action of just starting resonates with you, that you can take that into your day to day. I think it's really beautiful to lean into this idea that we're divinely guided all the time, that our community and ancestry, lineage. I always kind of imagine all of these grandmas who came before me, and they're just kind of there all of the time, being my biggest cheerleaders. Like I don't have to be afraid because I'm always supported. And I think that if we bring that energy into our ideas, into our creations, we really do understand that we have everything that we need. So that brings us to the end of the first episode here on Tita Talks. I will see you here every last Wednesday of the month, right here on Radyo Kapwa.
I'm familiar with unrequited. I know you got a heart that's undecided, just like mine. It takes its sweet time. I've been shy to dive into the deep end, 'cause I don't really want to lose a good friend, but I might find something divine. It's electric every time we touch. I've been living for this head rush, but sometimes it's too much. If we never try, how will we know, baby, how far this thing could go? Give me a sign if I'm on your mind. I don't wanna fall in love alone. I wish that I could tell you
pag-usapan lahat na nangyayari sa atin. Pagkatapos ako lamunin at suyuin ang panahon, pati sa panaginip di man lang uminahon. Sadyang gusto ko lang naman tanungin ang iyong mata na madalas nagsisinungaling. Ang galing parang kahapon lang mahal mo ako. Hindi nasaan ganito ka magbabago. Pero kahit ganito, naiisip mo malam ako. Kasi kahit saan magpunta, hinahanap ko ang iyong mukha. At pagka biglang magkita pa tayo sa QC, sa UP, sa kalsada ng BGC. Pagkalipas ng ilang taon, makikita mo walang tinapon. Di ko binaon, bagkus tinanim sa aking puso at isip. Nung napininiwan mo ako, habang buhay akong naghihintay sa'yo. Bumalik sa akin. Ang dami pa nating nais puntahan, mga plano natin na sumusuntok sa buwan. Ngayon siya na ang kasama mo kung saan. Saan man talaga mali para iyong iwanan. Sa tuwing ako'y masaya, naiisip pa rin kita. Kahit saan ako mapunta, hinahanap ko ang iyong mukha. At pagka biglang magkita pa tayo sa QC, sa UP, sa kalsada ng BGC. Pagkalipas ng ilang taon, makikita mo walang tinapon. Di ko binaon, bagkus tinanim sa aking puso at isip. Nung napininiwan mo ako, habang buhay akong maghihintay sa'yo. Bumalik sa akin. Sa museo ng Antipolo, sa MOA o sa makinhawa, nais kang makasama. Saan ka?
I'm super shy, but wait a minute while I make you mine, make you mine. 떨리는 지금도 you're on my mind all the time. I wanna tell you, but I'm super shy, super shy. I'm super shy, but wait a minute while I make you mine, make you mine. 떨리는 지금도 you're on my mind all the time. I wanna tell you, but I'm super shy, super shy. And I wanna go out with you, where you wanna go? Find a little spot, just sit and talk, looking pretty. Follow me, 우리 둘이 나란히 보이지? 내 눈이 갑자기 빛나지? When you say I'm a dream. You don't even know my name, dear. You don't even know my name, dear. 누구보다도 I'm super shy, but wait a minute while I make you mine, make you mine. 떨리는 지금도 you're on my mind all the shy, but wait a minute while I make you mine, make you mine. 떨리는 지금도 you're on my mind all the time. I wanna tell you, but I'm super shy, super shy. I'm super shy, super shy, but wait a minute while I make you mine, make you mine. 떨리는 지금도 you're on my mind all the time. I wanna tell you, but I'm super shy, super shy. You don't even know my name, do ya? You don't even know my name, do ya? 누구보다도 You don't even know my name, do ya? You don't even know my name, do ya?
Ako'y natutulala, araw-araw nakikita. Hindi alam ako'y nagkamasi, hindi mo lang ako napapansin. Hanggang tingin na lang ba sa'yo, di makalapit sa ganda mo. Gusto lang na makilala pa, kasi medyo nahihiya. Hindi ko masabi ang gusto aminin, ang hirap sabihin na gusto lang kita makasama hanggang sa pagpapanangarap pag tayo na lang dalawa. Hindi lang masabi pa maiba, gusto lang naman namin ang sa'yo ang nararamdaman ng aking puso. Wala nang iba, wag nang pahirapan pa, andito na. Totoo na nga ba to? Medyo hindi na pagtanto, matagal na kitang kilala, simula pa lang nung una nandito na. Ang hirap din patagalin, kasi maraming nakakapansin. Lahat na bibighani, hindi ko naman masisi. Hindi ko masabi ang gusto aminin, ang hirap sabihin na gusto lang kita makasama hanggang sa pagpapanangarap pag tayo na lang dalawa. Hindi lang masabi pa maiba, gusto lang naman namin ang sa'yo ang nararamdaman ng aking puso. Wala nang iba, wag nang pahirapan pa, andito na. Hindi rin makaimik, kahit po magkatabi. Nawawala aking tapang pag malapit ka na, bigla ako natutuwa. Mangangarap na lang ba na ikaw ang kasama? Ayoko nang mag-isa. James, let's go.
Kabado pa nang una, plano makausap. Lakad pa kalmado pero parang nalulula. Dami na kausap, kawan ng pusuan. Binibini gagawa ng paraan makuha ka. Ikaw na ngayon at walang iba. Okay lang ang mundo man natin ay magkaiba. Mapagod man ako, ikaw ang aking pahinga. Sabay sasalubungin ang umaga ng nakahiga. So tuwing kasama ka para ako lumulutang. Kung gaano kasaya yun ang di ko masukat. Lakas ng amat di kaya ako ginayuman. Ngayong kapit pa rin sa aking halimuyak niya. Gumagaan lahat ng mabigat. Nabuli lang tayo sa pagliyap. Lahat to paniginip lang. Pag-ising ko pangako yan agad kung sasabihin na
Gusto lang kita makasama hanggang sa pagpapanangarap pag tayo na lang dalawa. Hindi lang masabi pa maiba, gusto lang naman namin sa'yo ang nararamdaman ng aking puso. Wala nang iba, huwag mong pahirapan pa, andito na.
hate to give the satisfaction asking how you're doing now. How's the castle built of people you pretend to care about? Just what you wanted. Look at you, cool guy, you got it. I see the parties and diamonds. Sometimes when I close my eyes, 6 months of torture you sold to some forbidden paradise. I loved you truly. You gotta laugh at the stupidity, 'cause I've made some real big mistakes, but you make the worst one look fine. I should have known it was strange. You only come out at night. I used to think I was smart, but you made me look so naive. The way you sold me for parts, you sunk your teeth into me. Bloodsucker, dream crusher, bleeding me dry like a damn vampire. Every girl I ever talked to told me you were bad, bad news. You called them crazy. God, I hate the way I called them crazy too. You're so convincing. How do you lie without flinching? Ooh, what a mesmerizing, paralyzing, tragic little thrill. Can't figure out just how you do it, and God knows I never will. And for me and not her, 'cause girls your age know better. I've made some real big mistakes, but you make the worst one look fine. I should have known it was strange. You only come out at night. I used to think I was smart, but you made me look so naive. The way you sold me for parts is you sunk your teeth into me. Bloodsucker, dream crusher, bleeding me dry like a damn vampire. You said it was true love, but wouldn't that be hard? You can't love anyone, 'cause that would mean you had a heart. I tried to help you out, now I know that I can't, 'cause how you think's the kind of thing I'll never understand. I've made some real big mistakes, but you make the worst one look fine. I should have known it was strange. You only come out at night. I used to think I was smart, but you made me look so naive. The way you sold me for parts is you sunk your teeth into me. Bloodsucker, dream crusher, bleeding me dry like a damn vampire.
What if I told you that I've fallen? And I like the way you say my name. My heart skips a beat when I hear you calling. And I like that it won't go away. But never mind, don't wanna give you any trouble. Never mind, never mind. I'm okay with being by your side for as long as I can hide. What if I told you that I've fallen? What if I told you that I've fallen? A heart-shaped arrow through my chest. I'll make you breakfast every morning and pick you up when you're a mess. You know I'll be there when you call me, whether you like it or not. Without a warning, now I'm falling for this picture on my phone. But don't mind me, I'm just falling. I'll get back up on my own. Please don't say my name. Help me put out this flame. I'd rather hold on to this feeling that you don't even believe in. What if I told you that I've fallen? What if I told you that I've fallen? Never mind, never mind, never mind. You that I've fallen. Never mind, never mind, never mind. You that I've fallen. Never mind, never mind, never mind. You that I've fallen. Never mind, never mind, never mind. Never mind. If I told you, never mind. When we're out in a crowd, laughing loud and nobody knows why. When we're lost at a club, getting drunk and you give me that smile. Going home in the back of a car and your hand touches mine. When we're done making love and you look up and give me those eyes. 'Cause all of the small things that you do are what remind me why I fell for you. And when we're apart and I'm missing you, I close my eyes and all I see is you and the small things you do. When you call me at night while you're out getting high with your friends, every high, every bye, every I love you you've ever said. 'Cause all of the small things that you do are what remind me why I fell for you. And when we're apart and I'm missing you, I close my eyes and all I see is you and the small things you do. When we're done making love and you look up and give me those eyes. 'Cause all of the small things that you do are what remind me why I fell for you. And when we're apart and I'm missing you, I close my eyes and all I see is you and the small things you do.
saan humihinto para lang makita mo ako. Naghihintay lang para sa'yo. Ikaw lang ang laman ng aking puso. Lagi kang tumatakbo sa isip ko. Di na makatulog sa gabi. Ikinapos mo ako ng iyong ngiti. Ilan kayang bituin ang bibilangin ko para sa'yo? Ilan kayang mundo ang lilibutin ko? Makita lang na ako ay totoo. Pakisabi na lang sa kanya na wala nang masahalaga. Pakisabi na lang sa kanya na wala nang masasaya pa. Pakisabi na lang sa kanya na mahal ko siya. Bakit ka pa ba nalilito? Kung sino-sino ang pinupuntong, wala nang mas magmamahal sa'yo. At ang puso kong ito'y para sa'yo. Ilan kayang bituin ang bibilangin ko para sa'yo? Ilan kayang mundo ang lilibutin ko? Makita lang na ako ay totoo. Pakisabi na lang sa kanya na wala nang masahalaga. Pakisabi na lang sa kanya na wala nang masasaya pa. Pakisabi na lang sa kanya na mahal ko siya. Nandito lang naman ako. Nadarama mo ba itong pag-ibig ko? Pakisabi na lang sa kanya na wala nang masahalaga. Pakisabi na lang sa kanya na wala nang masasaya pa. Pakisabi na lang sa kanya na mahal ko siya. Pakisabi na lang sa kanya na wala nang masahalaga. Pakisabi na lang sa kanya na wala nang masasaya pa. Pakisabi na lang sa kanya na mahal ko siya. Na mahal ko siya.
I touch that fire for you. I do that 3-4 times again. I testify for you. I told I like you, that bitch. I do it all that I'm around. You scared to do. I'm not. Long as you joking now in for me, I ain't got it. My bitch scheming, looting, hide your bodies. Long as you dreaming about me, ain't no problem. I don't got nobody just with you right now. Tell the truth, I look better under you. I can't lose when I'm with you. How can us lose and miss the moment? You just too important. Nobody do body like you do. I can't lose when I'm with you. I can't just snooze and miss the moment. You just too important. Nobody do I feel like Scarface. Like that white bitch with the bob, I'll be your main one. Let's take this argument back up to my place. Sex remind you I'm not violent, I'm your day one. We ain't had shit, yeah. It was magic, yeah. Smash and grab shit, yeah. Nasty habits take a hold when you're not here. Ain't a home when you're not here. Hard to grow when you're not here. I'm saying I can't lose when I'm with you. How can I snooze and miss the moment? You just too important. Nobody do body like you do. I can't lose when I'm with you. How can I snooze and miss the moment? You just too important. Nobody do body like you do. You do.
Main one lying, are you frontin' on me and I'm the main one trying? Are you blaming on me and you the main one lying? Are you threatening leaving? I'm the main one crying. Just tryna be you everything. Main one crying. Are you frontin' on me and I'm the main one trying? Are you blaming on me and you the main one lying? Are you threatening leaving? I'm the main one crying.
I can't lose when I'm with you. How can I snooze and miss the moment? You just too important. Nobody do body like you do. I can't lose when I'm with you. How can I snooze and miss the moment? You just too important. Nobody do body like you do. You do.
Don't you notice how I get quiet when there's no one else around? Me and you and awkward silence. Don't you dare look at me that way. I don't need reminders of how you don't feel the same. Oh, the burning pain, listening to you heart pump out some new soulmate. She's so perfect, blah, blah, blah. Oh, how I wish you'll wake up one day. Run to me, confess your love, at least just let me say that when I talk to you, oh, Cupid walks right through and shoots an arrow through my heart. And I sound like a loon, but don't you feel it to confess I loved you from the start. What's a girl to do, lying on my bed staring into the blue? Unrequited, terrifying love is driving me a bit insane. Have to get this off my chest, I'm telling you today that when I talk to you, oh, Cupid walks right through and shoots an arrow through my heart. And I sound like a loon, but don't you feel it to confess I loved you from the start. Confess I loved you, just thinking of you. I know I've loved you from the start.
Magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. Good afternoon everyone. My name is John Marvin Reyes. I am a youth leader and community organizer here bringing you important news back home in the Philippines. The article is from Rappler with the title, Quezon City Vows to Probe Man Who Pulled Gun on a Cyclist. Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte on Sunday, August 27, ordered its Law and Order, Cluster and QC Police District or QCPD to investigate the incident involving a man physically assaulting and drawing a gun on an unarmed cyclist. In a statement, the local government said it strongly condemns the August 8 incident caught on video and has since gone viral on social media and vows to conduct its probe despite an earlier statement by the QCPD that the two parties already made amends. Sinisiguro ng pamahalaang lungsod na mananagot ang naturang lalaki sa buong saklaw ng batas na kanyang posibleng nilabag, QC said, adding that violence has no space in the city. Hangad ng lokal na pamahalaan na maglaan ng ligtas na bike lanes sa lahat ng mga siklista, he added. The local government will see to it as to the man who will be held accountable under the law that he possibly violated. The city vows to provide a safe bike lanes to all cyclists. In a press conference at the QCPD, the driver, identified as Willie Gonzalez, expressed his regrets but blasted social media for making him look like a bad person. He added that there is more to the story but refused to discuss details about what transpired. The viral video shows the man alighting from a red car, then proceeding to hit the helmet of the cyclist before cocking his gun. The scene unfolded after his car collided with a cyclist near the boundary of Quezon City and Manila. QCPD Chief Police Brigadier General Nicolas Torre III said the two arrived at an understanding but said that anyone can file a complaint against Gonzalez. The cyclist was not present in the 10-minute press conference. The Quezon City government also appealed to the cyclist to come out and operate with the investigation, but also acknowledged the importance of his safety. The article was written by Judes Gavilan and published on August 27, 2023. Thank you so much for listening. Maraming salamat sa pakikinig. Once again, this is John Marvin Reyes, delivering you Philippine news from abroad.